The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Today is the day after. Today is February 4th, 2020. Last night, the shenanigans of the Iowa caucus. Wow. Just wow. Wow. So much to talk about from last night. I didn't get to sleep till about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I am driving on nothing but pure caffeine from this coffee. So it should be an interesting show this morning when you combine all of the shenanigans of last night with my mental state. Buckle up for the ride. First and foremost, everything that I'm getting ready to say should not and will not be laid at the feet of the caucus captains, of the local party chairs and the local precinct captains and all the people who are organizing, the people in Iowa who are doing the work. I want to make sure that we don't allow the narrative to be that there's something wrong with caucuses because of last night. No, there's something wrong with caucuses anyway, just in my opinion, but not because of last night. Last night, the fact that we don't have any results this morning is the result of the DNC, Tom Perez, and the Iowa State Party. And that's because they invested $60,000 into a startup company just 2 months before the Iowa caucuses and gave them the exclusive contract to build the app, the reporting app, the app that everyone was supposed to log into from their phone and send the results to the state party as well. I'm sure the Secretary of State so that they could record it. And without testing the app, side note, the name of the company that developed the app is called Shadow Inc. They have ties to several campaigns. One of the most notable campaigns that they're tied to is to Mayor Pete. Donors connected to Mayor Pete, connected to this. Yeah, there is a direct connection to Mayor Pete's campaign in this app, which is ironic because Mayor Pete was the only one to declare victory last night. On Twitter, he sent out a message that he is now getting clowned tremendously for. Last night, he said, "Iowa, you have shocked the nation. By all indications, we are going on to New Hampshire victorious. #Iowa caucuses." As a result of that, and as a result of the app having ties to his campaign and the app crashing conveniently, it is directly my experience as I was following the results last night. Des Moines Register was able to keep up a constant flow of caucus results all the way up until the point where Mayor Pete was no longer in the lead. At the beginning of the night, Mayor Pete was in the lead and the data was just coming in. I was like, oh, wow, this is an interesting result. But then all of a sudden, the data stream absolutely stopped when Bernie Sanders leaped ahead of Mayor Pete. Just to give you an example, the data stopped coming in at about 1.9% of the precincts reporting, right? 33 out of 1765. So this snapshot where we left off is not enough to make any conclusions, even though we do have some data for you to draw the conclusions. But I just want to show you at what point in the night the data stream stopped. So early on that you could only get 1.9%. So this app that they paid $60,000 for did not test it statewide, and instead of going with a backup plan that included using the phone to call the party to report the caucus results, the national party, as reported by the New York Times, Tom Perez and the DNC shut that down and made them stay with Shadow Inc.'s completely untested app, which happens to have ties to Mayor Pete's campaign. And Mayor Pete being the only one who came out last night declaring victory. Not even Bernie Sanders, who devastated everyone in the first alignment, in the first round of caucusing. I mean, there was nobody who wanted to come close to Bernie Sanders in the first alignment. In some precincts, the Pete Buttigieg didn't even qualify, didn't even make the cut. He wasn't viable. And then all of a sudden, Bernie Sanders is crushing it. And the data stream just cut out. Poop. Now, you could say what you want to say. Oh, Ben, that's a conspiracy theory. You know I don't deal in conspiracy theories. But come on. We're talking about a statewide, quite frankly, the most important, the first, because it's the first. It is the first opportunity for people to vote on the candidate that they want for president of the United States from the Democratic Party. There is probably a disproportionate and an undue amount of attention given to this caucus in the state of Iowa, right? This is something that should have been addressed all along. But nevertheless, as it is set up currently, this night was too goddamn important for stupidity to ensue, especially when that stupidity benefited the narrative, or so he thought, of Mayor Pete and took away from the narrative of the real victor last night. See, at the end of the day, the most important thing about Iowa is the narrative that comes out of it. And the Democratic Party showed that they are more willing to deal with the narrative that they're incompetent and they're incapable of running a statewide election than to give the narrative that Bernie Sanders devastated everybody. The numbers, listen, if this was just a pure vote, if this wasn't a caucus with the second round, right? Basically, second round of voting. If it was just a 1-for-1 vote, Bernie Sanders would have crushed by leaps and bounds. Mayor Pete would have came in second. Fine. Give him second place. Joe Biden, not even viable. And so what they have done is they've used the guise and the cover, rather, the cover that a caucus second realignment provides. And see, then that wasn't even good enough. But the cover that a realignment in the second round of caucusing provides for people, because there are so many bitter people who are like, well, we'll go anywhere but to Bernie Sanders. Fine. Bernie Sanders still won. Okay, let me give you some data. This is the internal polling coming from, this is the internal caucus results coming from the Sanders campaign, who obviously would be tracking this themselves, standing right next to the precinct captains, right? The caucus captains, or whatever you call yourselves over there in Iowa. This is the internal results from Bernie Sanders. Amy Klobuchar, who received, according to their final count, received 11% of the vote. Andrew Yang, 0.9%. Get the hell out of here, Andrew Yang. Bernie Sanders, 29.66%. Elizabeth Warren at 21.24%. Joe Biden at 12.3%. Get the hell out of here, Joe Biden. Pete Buttigieg at 24.59%. Second place, Tom Steyer at 2.24%. He is my favorite billionaire, but get the hell out of there, Tom. And Tulsi Gabbard at 0.00. I'm sorry, let's be fair. It's 0.01, not 2 zeros. My God, she got 9 votes in the final count, which makes sense. She wasn't viable in the first round. But okay, so there it is. Those are the results. I'm guarantee you that that's not going to be off by more than 1 percentage point at the most. And so it was critical for the Sanders campaign to put this out here, because if they waited through the night because they were coming, CNN started reporting, there seems to be something wrong with the second realignment, or with the first realignment, and it wasn't being done, and there's quality control concerns and wasn't being done properly, and then it was reported improperly, setting up the stage for the results to be meaningless from Iowa. When we can see that the people spoke, Bernie Sanders had the overwhelming majority of the people, or plurality of the people who showed up last night. And even after the realignment, after the second round of caucusing, there was a significant dip in, so basically the people who weren't viable, the people from Tulsi Gabbard, probably people from Tom Steyer, people from all these other places, they went to support different voices. Some of them went to support Mayor Pete. And this is what I was talking about with Sam Cedar last night. If you wondered, where we were last night, I was streaming live for about 5 hours with Sam Cedar and the Majority Report. But last night, This is why their plan didn't work. Their plan to stop Bernie Sanders, because they were not organized enough to move as a unit to support a candidate that would have been the biggest threat to Bernie Sanders. Mayor Pete doesn't stand a goddamn chance in the long run. So fine, champ, you want to be in second place and erroneously call and declare yourself the victor from last night? Fine, we want that fight with you. But they weren't organized enough to go to somebody who could have really been a threat to Bernie Sanders, like Joe Biden. And so Joe Biden comes out of Iowa looking like he's in fourth place. And I don't care what anyone says. If the mainstream media is trying to figure out what happened, it's a fiasco, we don't know what happened, the donors do. And the money is going to start drying up for a couple of people, particularly Joe Biden. But back to my point, they weren't smart enough or organized enough, according to Ryan Grimm of The Intercept, who was on the ground. He said it was a free-for-all. After the first alignment, after the first round of caucusing, it was a free-for-all. And instead of the people who were not viable moving as a unit to go and support, let's say, Joe Biden, they all scattered, and whoever can be enticed to come over to Pete, or whoever can be enticed to come to Warren, and whoever could be enticed to go over to Bernie Sanders. And still, after the alignment of all those people, the realignment of all those people who were going to go anywhere but to Bernie Sanders still came out victorious. And it's entirely infuriating that the narrative coming out of here, because again, I don't know which version. I don't know if I said this earlier in this version, because I've recorded this twice to make sure I cut out as much profanity as possible. But the most powerful thing about Iowa is the narrative afterwards, and they knew this. And so whether or not they are outright trying to steal the election in Iowa, they have already stolen the moment and the narrative. And that's all they had to do. So it is more viable. It is more important. Hold on, music. Hang on. I've got to finish this. It is more important, or it was more valuable to the party power players to keep the narrative from last night being one that Bernie Sanders wrecked shop and is dominating. And so is it far-fetched to suggest that this app would crash? It would crash because they hadn't tested it out for sure. But isn't it far-fetched for party power players, the money people, to intentionally keep this app from performing properly just so that they can freeze the narrative? The most important thing from this caucus is the narratives. Is that so far-fetched? Not at all. Because I have seen firsthand, and you have seen firsthand, how far these people will go to maintain their grip on power, and how far they're willing to go to make sure that they don't ever have to pay more in taxes. I'll be back right after this.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Well, all right. Iowa screwed up yesterday, but the results of our patronage from yesterday is outstanding. Very, very special welcome to all of our newest patrons. Roy M. I'm not even going to try, Roy. Welcome aboard. Thank you for becoming a patron. Very special welcome to Shayla Cruz. Thank you so much for becoming a patron. Very special thank you to Cassie. Thank you for becoming a patron. Welcome aboard to Michael Dean. Thank you for becoming a patron. Very special. No, that was a real, I had a cough. Very special thank you to Bartlett Ferguson. Thank you for becoming a patron. Very special thank you to Michael Browning. Thank you for becoming a patron. Very special thank you to Lyle Burns. Thank you for becoming a patron. And it goes on. Very special thank you to Naisha for increasing and doubling your pledge. Madam, you rock. Very special welcome and thank you to Yesenia. Yesenia, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Welcome aboard. Thank you for becoming a patron. And last but not least, at 12:12 this morning, Paul De Lucour. Thank you so much for becoming a patron. You too can join this prestigious and prodigious patron family by going to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show, where you get access to our ad-free plus bonus content show. The full show that the patrons get is a full hour A full hour. So when the rest of you, and hey, listen, I love all of you, even those of you who can't become a patron. I get it. That's why I've committed to giving you a full 30-minute show of the very best that I can give. I'm giving you the very best that I got. Somebody just meant to tweet to me what am I alluding to with that? Giving you the best that I got. So yeah, I give you the best that I have. Right. But I have to give something to the patrons because they're literally the people whose dollars have now been transferred to my business account. And now I can pay the bills to keep the show going. Like they're literally the lifeline. And so when the music cuts off for the rest of you at the end of the show, there's a whole nother 30 minutes that goes on for the patrons. And that's just my way of saying, hey, you all are the MVPs because I can't do it without you. Literally, I can't. If you like this show, I need you to become a patron. You know, it's literally me, my microphone, and you. There's nobody supporting me at this point. Nothing. I've got nobody but you. Have I laid it on thick enough? All right, let's move on. I don't know that I'm done being angry about the caucus from last night. I don't. Because I mean, there's so many, and not just angry, but also there's so much happening in these caucuses. So let me start here. I told you all, Joe Biden is not electable. And we are robbed of the fact that should be the story this morning. And I have no compunction whatsoever, no hesitation or reservation to think or to suggest to you that it is far more critical and crucial for the Democratic Party to stave off the narrative that would propel Bernie Sanders into crushing it the rest of the way, as well as demoralize everyone else. Do you think for a second they wouldn't push that back end button to just slow the app down just to change the narrative? They know they can't. They know they can't steal it. I'm still here, guys. I'm sorry. I tried to move, but I'm here. They know they cannot steal it because of the sheer numbers. It was so, listen, to everyone in Iowa who supports Bernie Sanders and went out to caucus, thank you. Because if just 10% fewer has shown up, then they could have manipulated this to show a clear victory for Pete Buttigieg. And I'm telling you, that has been what we have had to do. We should have been doing in 2016. There has to be such an overwhelming show of force at the polls such that they can't even steal it from us. The only thing they could steal last night was the narrative, which quite frankly is the most valuable thing that comes out of Iowa because the number of delegates that come out of Iowa is insignificant in the greater scheme of things. No disrespect to you Iowans. Total love and respect to you all. But it is what it is. And one of the narratives that was stolen from us last night is the fact that Joe Biden is not electable. He is going to lose the primaries. So stop wasting your time propping up a politically dead man walking. It's like Weekend at Joe's. And I guess I really shouldn't use that comparison, because if you saw the video that came out last night of Joe Biden being led around Iowa, it looked like maybe that was his granddaughter who was handling him. Maybe she's working as his handler. But it really looked like an elderly man who needed to not be on the campaign trail. I'm sorry. Listen, everybody was like, oh, that's what a handler does. That's what a handler does. Listen, I've been in politics for a long time. And let me tell you something about handlers. I've never seen a handler have to handle somebody as though they were a frail, old, senile person who needs to be at home. And that's how she was carrying around Joe Biden yesterday. And I'm sorry, if nobody else wants to talk about it, I will. I can talk about it because that runs in my family deep. That's why I'm giving you guys the best years that I have. I'm going to give everything I can. I'm going to get it all out now because it's a good possibility that I'm going to be somebody's going to have to be leading me around. I mean, I've seen family members go from 1 year when I saw them for their birthday party. It was an intellectual conversation about who I am and my purpose and sometimes succeeding and sometimes failing. And then I swear to God, this year, they didn't even recognize me. So when I talk about this, I'm talking about this not out of attacking Joe Biden, out of being disgusted by the people who are propping this man up so that they can get a goddamn check at the expense of the American people and at the expense of Joe Biden. You don't let your family, if you love your family, you don't let them get exploited by people for money. And that's what's happening with Joe Biden. It's clear as day to me because I know all of us know the signs, but I've lived through the signs with just about every member of my family. Every member on my dad's side, like hell. And some on my mother's side. Just seeing just all it takes less than a year from you to go from being a sharpshooter mentally to not recognizing people, not immediately recognizing people. And that shit kind of broke my heart, right? Seeing my family, like it's recent as like 2 weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago. It was anyway, I'm not going to put too much information out there because I don't want people to piece it together and try to figure out which family member I'm talking about. I'm talking about my family in general, and I've seen it. And this is what's happening with Joe Biden. Let that man, let him go home. One, because he's not electable, but two, my God, how long are you all going to milk your gravy train just so that you can get a goddamn check and then put this man up on the international stage against Donald Trump, who quite frankly is losing his faculties as well? This is not a good look. This is not a good look for America. And it has nothing to do with age, except for the fact that age is a factor. But we have, Elizabeth Warren is in the same age category, and she's not missing a beat. Not a beat. I'm jealous. I want my brain to work like that when I get that age. Bernie Sanders is not missing a beat. I'm quite jealous. I want my brain to work as good as his when I get that age. So it's not a direct correlation or causality. Just because you're old doesn't mean that your brain is not going to be functioning at a level. It's just some of us suffer from it more significantly and more quickly than everybody else. That's the personal side for me. Now, the political side of it was Joe Biden wasn't electable in the first goddamn place. He's never won an election like this. He's never become the nominee before. He's always sabotaged himself with his own lies, right? I feel bad for him in terms of his mental faculties, but in terms of his bullshit politics, he was never going to be electable. And yet so much is being put on him, so much is riding on him, so that now, here's the thing. I keep telling people, Elizabeth Warren, one of the reasons I liked Elizabeth Warren up until the point where she pulled those shenanigans with Bernie Sanders was that she is not the pick of the establishment. Because if she was the pick of the establishment, do you think they would be risking crushing the entire party by allowing Michael Bloomberg to come in? They are so opposed to Elizabeth Warren that they're more willing to allow Michael Bloomberg to come in and assume control of the party. And so to me, Elizabeth Warren has always been in this primary cycle. She's literally been on the outside of the establishment. Sure, she has a handful of people who like her who are from the establishment, but the establishment machine as a whole has tried everybody they could to avoid two people. Bernie Sanders was a non-starter. Like, they would burn this thing down before they allow Bernie Sanders to get power. But Elizabeth Warren, they would put Michael Bloomberg in. They would prop up Joe Biden, who needs to be on a beach somewhere, sipping a Mai Tai or whatever, just enjoying himself. In his twilight years, they tried him. And hell, they're even willing to try Mayor Pete, who won't stand a chance because he doesn't get but like 0.0% in the black community. The firewall in the South isn't going to save Joe Biden, but it's going to crush Pete Buttigieg. But the point of this segment is to say two things. One, if these handlers and consultants who are cashing in on Joe Biden do not stop, this is unfair to Joe Biden. I particularly don't care about being fair to, but I do care about the fact that you guys are propping him up to the detriment of Joe and to the detriment of this country. And shame on you. Shame on every single stinking one of you. And then two, even in your best efforts to prop up a man who needs to be at home, he's still not electable, you big dummies. I am okay. Now I'm enjoying myself. I was pissed off this morning. I'm still pissed off, but you got to find a place to be and to enjoy yourself in your pissed offdom. I'm so stupid, guys. All right, listen to this clip of Dr. Jason Johnson on MSNBC trying to lecture Nina Turner on using the word oligarch to describe Michael Bloomberg. Yes. Let me repeat. Black man who looks just like me, bald head, cut around face, glasses. He's lecturing Nina Turner because she called Michael Bloomberg an oligarch, and he took issue with that. Listen in.
The system that allows Mike Bloomberg to make all the money that he makes, the system that allows him to buy what he wants to buy, the system that allows him to buy himself into the administration and buy himself into the debates is a problem. But to call him an oligarch, I think, is a misnomer in this environment. And again, you're working for somebody who's part of the 1%. Do you call him an oligarch? No, you don't. You say he's a rich guy. Because just because somebody has a tremendous amount of money doesn't mean that they're not necessarily representing the people. And if you want to use the term elite, you can use whatever kind of term that you want to use. But at the end of the day, the enemy of this country, the enemy of the poor, is not just everybody who happens to be rich. It is a capitalistic system that abuses people. And if you want to speak about that, that's fine. But if you want to name call people, that's not going to help Bernie if he becomes a nominee, and he's going to need Mike Bloomberg's money. If he's going to need Mike Bloomberg's money down the road.
It's ironic
this is all I'm
that you're
talking
defending
about.
somebody
I'm
that
not
is buying
defending
his
rich
way
people.
through
I'm
the
not defending
democracy.
rich
Yes,
people.
you
I know
are.
this
You are
works on
defending
Twitter
him.
because that's how you guys operate.
You
But when
are
it comes to
defending him.
actual
This is not
campaign
about
politics,
This
it makes sense
boy.
to actually describe people for the positions
just
that they
ironic.
have.
Is this about a word? Is this about a word, Jason? Is this about a word?
No, it's not just about a word. It's about
about a
the
word.
implications of it.
It's about the implications of it. Okay, so I jumped into that argument. Because what Jason is trying to do here is trying to present himself. Listen, I have to call it what it is, right? I follow Jason on Twitter. I've been a fan of him at sundry times, right? This isn't about attacking Jason, right? I want to be clear about that. But I do attack bullshit. And Jason, it is the case that when you take a disingenuous position, no matter how intellectual you try to sound, you come off sounding disingenuous and you come off sounding like you're full of bullshit. Because how on God's green earth do you compare a man who is worth $2 million as a result of a couple of book sales and as a result of his real estate, his 2 homes? How do you compare that to a man who's worth 30,000 times more? Michael Bloomberg, I thought he was worth 54 billion. Apparently, he's gotten even richer since the last time we talked about him. He's worth $60.2 billion. And someone tweeted to me last night that Bernie is the 0.2, and that's not even true, right? 0.2 would mean he was worth 200 million. No, Bernie is like a few decimal points. You see, I'm not going to try on the fly. Right? Compared, he's 30,000 times. 30,000 times more wealth Michael Bloomberg has than Bernie Sanders. And if you're going to try to present yourself as the intelligent one or the intellectual because you have a PhD and you present yourself in a tone and a mannerism that is both palatable to the mainstream media, but also one that conveys that you're intelligent, right? Then you have to be intellectually honest. And it is the height of intellectual dishonesty. It is the manipulation. It is using your pedigree to manipulate the conversation to the benefit of an oligarch. I'm sorry. I'm gonna hinge this conversation on the fact that he tried to say that Bernie Sanders and Michael Bloomberg are the same because one is worth 2 million and one is worth 60 billion. My guy. If you took that mess to any PhD conference, any academic conference across this country, they will laugh you to scorn. And how dare you try to use your persona, your intellectual persona as a way in a way that's so easily destroyed, right? I mean, if you're going to and again, I'm trying not to make this personal, but if your shtick is to try to protect, I don't know what the hell you're doing. What are you doing, bruh? Protecting Michael Bloomberg from being called an oligarch? When you look at the economic, you look at the simple definition of oligarchy. He is literally this weekend has demonstrated that he is an oligarch because he has the ability to use his wealth, to use his money as a means of controlling our political system. The quintessential definition of an oligarch. But because, and as we got in, okay, I'm running out of time. All right. It's convenient for me to try to lure you to become a patron. So go to patreon.com/BPD show to get the rest of the rest of this episode, because I'm not an oligarch. I'm not a millionaire. I'm nothing. I need your help. But I got into it with him directly on Twitter over this, and I'll read you the exchange so that you can see the disingenuousness of his arguments. And Nina Turner got into the conversation as well. So I'm going to breathe for a second while the music plays, and I will speak to the patrons right after this. And for the rest of you, love you. See you tomorrow.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.